This is my tech stack. I love working with Angular. I have also other technologies, and my secret desire is WordPress.
Secret pleasure.
A secret pleasure, yeah. And yeah, but I would say let's start. Just one more word about myself. I started a blog 1 month ago with my first blog post, and there will be in future more blog posts about Angular, cards and interceptors. So everything that I say here will be, not everything, but some things will be on this blog, and I will make what I don't like about Angular as well. It won't be a long one, but it will be a blog post. And yes, and just a disclaimer, which things that I always say at my presentations, not just at this one. I know there are many ways how to implement things. I just will show a few demos how things can be implemented, but there are 100 ways of implementing. For example, when I show an interceptor, I know this can be handled with an error handler as well and stuff like this. So I just wanted to say this before I start. And just my last vote for today, anybody here who, or how many of you have used guards and interceptors before? Okay, let's, the other way around, how many of you haven't used guards and interceptors before? Okay, I hope that it will still be interesting for everybody here. Yeah, today's topic is examples how to improve UX on your Angular app. We will have a few definitions about guards and interceptors, and as I said before, there are many ways how to implement things, and I will show a few examples. And please try out at home. So if you say, okay, I implemented this in a completely other way, just try it out, give me feedback, and yeah, let's start with extra. There will be a few definitions. I will talk about Angular guards. I will show examples, code, screenshots, and so on. Interceptors and handlers, the same. A few use cases, and I will showcase a few demo app. And afterwards, discussions, foods, drinks, a break, and then I'm really looking forward to the second talk of today. So, what is user experience? This is the first thing, so that we get a few definitions. I was looking for a good definition, and the first one on Google appears, and I thought, no, I don't want to use the first definition that I found, but I think it's a good one. So I was really looking around, but this is the best definition of user experience in my opinion. It's the overall experience of a person using a product, such as a website or a computer application, especially in terms of how easy and pleasing it is to use. And I like not only the easy, but also the pleasing. If people use an application, they should enjoy it, even if it's just, you know, buying a ticket or something like this. It should be nice, in my opinion. And I always try to be as near as possible at the user. So for example, right now I have a client and they have a production facility, a plant factory, and I was really happy that I could see how the people are using in the plant application that I was working on, and yeah. And I have a UX expert I'm working with, and I asked her, can you give me a short and easy definition of what is UX? And she said UX is everything. And yeah, I like this, so I put this on my slide. Yeah, I think I move on. Angular guard. This is a guard. Many people think of guards. What is a guard? They protect routes, obviously. But it's not just entering a route. Most people, almost everybody who has worked with guards know it's entering a route, but it's also when leaving a route. So when you see a guard at a shopping mall, when you enter the shop, they don't want anything from you, but when you leave, they say, please show me your pockets. And it's kind of similar with Angular routes, and you can check out in both ways. It's cool for control the navigation, and a few use cases is the outguard, authentication, authorization. Everybody knows, not everybody, but I think everybody in this room knows this, but there are many more use cases. For example, a resolver can prefetch data on entering a route. You can save data when your user forgot to hit the save button on leaving. And yeah, and a few examples. Checking if a user has sufficient permissions to enter a route. I think this is the most obvious thing when we talk about guards. Checking whether a product or a given ID even exists is the semantic of the URL of the route. Is this okay or not? I will show an example later. And checking whether a user is allowed to leave a route. So, for example, everybody loves policies in big corporations. And their password policies, please change your password every 30 days and please make it as long as possible, so you write it down on a sticky note and pin it somewhere. And the thing is, you're not allowed to do anything in your application as long as you have not set the password, and you are not allowed to leave this route when you set the password. Okay, then a few words about interceptors before I start with that. What are interceptors? And this is my favorite definition. It's from angular.io. It's just 6 words or so. Intercepts and handles HTTP request or HTTP response. Yeah, I mean, it says pretty much everything, but that's the official definition. And use cases, modify headers if you have an auth token. This is also the most obvious thing that most applications have. But there are many more use cases. For example, for logging HTTP requests on the front end, to cache them, or to catch errors. You can use error handlers as well, and this is why I say there are so many ways to implement stuff in Angular, but you can also do it on an interceptor, and we'll show some examples later, and examples attaching the GWT or bearer tokens to a request, network diagnosis, reveal patterns, failures when trying to access an external API, because you might have a great monitoring tool, but if a route doesn't even exist, your monitoring tool might not even catch it that the front end does something extremely wrong. Or to cache certain data, maybe in a signal store. I haven't used it in a signal store in my example, because I will be learning about signal store in 1 hour. So let's see if I should rewrite my demo app. And handling errors, for example, catching obvious errors. Permission denied error, just show a thing you're not allowed. Please log in, or please tell somebody to send you the information, something like this. This can be easily handled. So I will show everything that I will show with the demo app. I won't have live coding here. I have bad experience with live coding in the past, so I'll just show screenshots of my application and of the code. And yeah, my demo app is a B2B product catalog. It's just a very, very simple overview. I don't want to go into detail. I don't want to stretch this for too long. So we have a catalog, we have 3 roles. A visitor can see the product listing, the overview page, but not the details. A user can see the details, and an administrator can edit the details, but yeah, I don't have an admin page even for this demo app, but just to show the use cases. And there is a business requirement, and we all have business requirements because they're mostly really great for our applications, especially if they come in on Friday morning and say we have to go live this week. But the business requirement in this case is just show the product listing page, have a see details buttons on each product, but disable this button for visitors, which sounds logical. Only logged in users should be able to really see the product details. And then it might look like this. And of course, I mean, this looks ugly because this is just a wireframe. Wireframes should look ugly because I don't know if any of you remember balsamic mock-ups from the past. I don't know if it's still used, but they try to really make the thing look ugly so that the end user does not think that this is the real application. And this is why I also have this button here, the go to products, really ugly, that you see that it's more about the things behind it and not about the visibility of this application. So, and here we have something, and what's the problem here? Who knows it? Nobody, because we just see product details and nothing else. And I think that we should have an interceptor here, or a guard. We should not even see anything here. So, and we all know websites, hopefully not built by ourselves, but probably government websites also, where you see this screen. You're waiting, is something coming or not? We are opening the DevTools and looking, aha, okay, something went wrong. But yeah, many applications look like this, and I try to show a few ways how to prevent such things. Okay, guards, let's talk about guards. As I said earlier, guards protect roots. But what is a root? A root is some entry point in your application. We have a home component which is routing the start page, just slash products list will show us the list component, and we see here, can I use my mouse here? No, I cannot. Then I use my hand. And here we redirect, if we have a product detail with Harvard ID, to the list component. And here in the bottom you see we have editor component if we have product slash detail slash any ID. Okay, yeah, and I've shown you the screenshot before. We have just a for loop for our products, and if the user role is user or administrator, show the link. If not, please do not show the link, because they are not allowed. And yeah, it's pretty basic, and as most of you have much experience in Angular, I think I'm not explaining this into detail. I have a video, I'm not sure if this is working. Okay, it is working, so I go to profile, I click the login button, I'm logged in, I go to the product, and I see product ID is 1, great. Then I go to the logout, and then I see nothing. This is pretty much what we expect, but now there is a business requirement. And just as a disclaimer, business requirements like these really exist, but I think most of you are working with companies and with business requirements, so I don't have to tell you that this is not just any invention made by me. The business requirement says, show the product listing page, have a see details button, and it should be visible for everybody. They should not see the details, but they should see that there is a details button. And they should even be able to click it and then get redirected to a login page so that they create an account. So, what do we do? First of all, we say, okay, but this doesn't make sense. Why do we show a button? Why don't we show just an information? If you want to, no, we want it like this, okay? Then we need guards. A guard should prevent a visitor to actually enter the page. And yeah, then we create a guard and an auth guard, just pretty basic. We have the user service is logged in, true. Otherwise, we return a URL tree, which means if everything is right, just return true, pass them through the root. If not, pass them through the login page, to the profile page to log in. And we add, why is my mouse not working and I'm not in full?
It's on the left.
It is. There it is. Okay, but it's so small, so I don't know if you can see the mouse. Here on line 29 on the right side, 27 it is, with can activate auth guard, I just activated the guard so that I just added it to this root. So every time a user tries to enter, we see this. And yeah, we have our router link, go to product, visible for everybody. And I have an example video of how this looks like. So we log in, we see everything, we log out, still see everything, but then we get redirected to the user. Really great. Yeah. So the card is now working perfectly as expected, but the user experience is bad. They want to see a product. Why are they seeing the login page? It doesn't make any sense. So we're discussing with business, okay, can we do something? The user doesn't even know why they are at the login page. Better to show an additional notification. And yeah, the user experience means guiding the user. Either don't show the button at all, which would be best case, but if you have a business requirement, then show an information to the user. And whenever something goes wrong, there are three things that the user should see. First of all, something is not working. In the example before, there was just a blank page. It would be better to see, oops, something went wrong or something like this. We all know this. Okay, but second, why it's not working. Is it because you don't have the rights? Then do something, because the third thing is how it would be working. So if you don't, you can, for example, say, oops, something went wrong. You don't have sufficient rights, but you can log in. Oops, something went wrong. You don't have the rights. You're not an administrator, but you can ask your boss about this information and stuff like this. So this is mostly what my presentation today is about. And I show you that if logged in true, then we can navigate to the profile and still open a model. I used NgBootstrap here because a client uses it. I haven't used it in a long time, so I tried it out with this demo app. I didn't like it, but that's not the topic here. Show a model which says you are not allowed to access this route. Please log in. It's better, in my opinion. It's an improvement. It's a first improvement for a maybe not so awesome requirement of the business. Alright, so further use cases for this kind of cards are feature toggles. So how many of you know or how many of you don't know what a feature toggle is? Great, then I don't have to explain anything. So you can use feature toggles. Don't show this feature on this staging environment. Then use a card. Device compatibility, not ready for mobile yet is so the thing, but some pages, maybe it's a PWA which needs your camera, then it should be only available on mobile. So make a guard and don't let them in if they enter from a device which doesn't have a camera. Geographic location-based restrictions, we all love them. You can also use this for guards. If people from a certain country are not allowed to visit a certain part of your page. Time-based access restrictions. I have a use case where we have a target planning for each shift for a client's application. And what the people did after the shift, they changed the target because they couldn't fit their goals, and then they say no, it's not. They are not allowed to do it because why do you have targets when you change it afterwards? So yeah, you could use a guard so that the user is not even able to see the page. Mostly it's a backend thing to restrict it, but for better UX, you should not even let the user in. Yeah, final words about this can activate guard. It's only front-end side. It's good for user experience, but it's not for real security, because the real security is in the backend. The user will always be an Angular expert, will always be able to see pages even though a guard is before. And yeah, let's go to the next topic, a resolver. So some people see resolvers as guards. Some people see resolvers as resolvers. I will still put them into guards in this topic. So our product detail page, some checks might have to be done before the route is loaded. For example, check if the ID, if the route is a valid ID, but this can be a can activate guard as well. But if it's a valid ID, then preload, prefetch some data before the thing is before you put them to the route, the component is building up and everything. Just prefetch data. And if something goes wrong, show a meaningful thing on the feedback on the UI. This is, so I don't know if you like my talk or not, but the only thing that you should remember is if something goes wrong, show a meaningful feedback on the UI. And yeah, we have a product resolver. So at the first lines of code, I just check if the ID is less than 0 or greater than 9999. We don't have so many products, then navigate back to the product list. And in the next way, the next term then can show a modal which says, oh, this ID doesn't look right on anything, product ID is invalid. But here's a cool thing about resolvers. We can prefetch data. We have this get product service, which is getting the product for us. Then we check if everything is all right, if this product exists, if we receive something from the backend. If not, showing a meaningful thing on the UI, redirecting to another page, for example, back to the product list if something goes wrong, if we catch an error, if there is a 500 error or something like this. Just smoothly, yeah, redirect and back to whatever page. In this case, it's a product listing page. So the prefetching data, how does it look like? So on our rules definition, we have the resolver here. This is the resolver, by the way. We define them here. And on the right side, you see on our product, I just have to check this. It's completely wrong. I should check it at the beginning, not at the end of the presentation. But, and I know this is not the best clean coding stuff. It's just a demo for showing. And so I'm looking for my mouse again. Anybody seeing?
Yeah,
near the if load.
Right.
Oh, this one, thanks. I need a magnifier class. So the cool thing is, as the data, the product details data is already there because the resolver was resolving it for us before. We can directly receive, no, sorry, this line here. Yes, we can directly receive the product data from our root because it's stored there, which is a really cool feature in my opinion. And yeah, if we click on something and something goes wrong, here is an application screenshot. Yeah, of how it might look like. Okay, let's. I would go to the can deactivate guard now. A can deactivate guard is doing the opposite of the can activate guard. So as I said before, entering a root or leaving a root, and it checks if you're allowed to leave a page. And I think this is kind of an underrated feature in Angular. Typical use cases are there unsafe changes on the page? This is the most used thing for it. Is the profile complete? For example, a banking app, you have to enter date and accept terms before you. And if you don't do it, you cannot leave this please accept everything and give us all your money page before. This is not safe, you cannot leave the root. For a multi-step process, for example, if you have a wizard with many steps, you cannot leave this step if sufficient data is missing. For a file upload, ask the user, do you really want to leave this page? The file is not uploaded yet. And for the subscription cleanup, I found this, I never tried it, to be honest, in any of my projects, to use the can deactivate guard to just unsubscribe from every open subscription. It's pretty clever, in my opinion. And this is how a can deactivate guard looks like. So, for example, if we have a form and we see our form is not pristine anymore, and the component is, but it's also not saved, just open a model, you have unsaved changes. And here on line 39, on the right side, to see we have the can deactivate guard for our user profile page. So if you, for example, change the password and don't hit the save button, inform the user. Yeah, so just a few last words, famous last words about Angular guards. They check whether you can enter or leave a route. Out guards, for example, prefetch data, we have seen it preventing leaving a route. And there are more guards. There is the can load guard, which is deprecated in favor of the can match guard. And the can match guard decides if a route can be matched based on the URL, and it hits earlier than the can activate guard. And I haven't used can match in a very long time. This is why I also not presenting it. I only want to present things that I worked on recently, but it's a cool feature. All right, I will go to the second topic of today, or the third topic, when you say user experience guards and now interceptors. This is my, I'm not Picasso, I know, but I haven't found any better image of showing how an interceptor is working. So there is a computer which is making the request to the database, and in between sits the interceptor. And you can modify the request, and if you get a response, you can also modify the response and put it back to whoever subscribed to an HTTP call. So the HTTP interceptors, we have a chain of interceptors, and if you want to go from one to the next one, we have the next.handle. I will show you in the code. And we can intercept requests, but we can also intercept responses. And I know there are other ways to intercept certain kind of responses, like error handlers. Yeah, but I will show a few examples. As I said before, these are the examples of Angular interceptors. This is a duplicate slide from earlier. You can attach tokens to the HTTP request, network diagnosis, caching stuff, and handling errors. And yeah, this is how an interceptor looks like. Is it readable from back? Yeah, I mean the code is online anyways if you want to see the details. So we have an intercept class which is handling all the stuff. For example, yeah, I have this example from the internet. This is how to add a bearer token to an HTTP request, and I have the image from here, so I linked the source. But I won't talk about Angular interceptors with out tokens, because there were, I don't know, 500 articles on Medium. And yeah, I will talk about another topic, a network diagnosis, how a design of a network diagnosis in the front end could look like. We can intercept HTTP calls, we store the number of HTTP calls, and then we store all the errors. And if we see, okay, we have, I don't know, we store the number, we have 50 HTTP calls and 7 errors. Something is really wrong in your application. And yeah, then we are able to do some diagnosis maybe on the front-end side. And yeah, this is how an interceptor could look like. This is the new way to do it, not with a class-based interceptor, but yeah, with the interceptor function. We have the network analysis service that I created, and we add just +1 for an HTTP call. We do it for every call that you get, and then we catch errors and we store them as well in this service. And yeah, whenever we receive an error, we store it like this in our service. And here you can see we have numbers of HTTP calls 10 and 3 errors. And yeah, we should do some diagnosis, because in this case we have a status called 0, which means the backend isn't even reachable. And if you have a great monitoring tool, it won't even catch this one. So this is why network diagnosis in the front end is, in my opinion at least, it's underrated. You can disagree, but I think it's possible to have a diagnosis in the front end, and then when the backend is up against, and for the diagnosis data to some service in the backend. So UX improvements. show an information to the user. I've said this before, that something went wrong, whoops, what went wrong, and what to do next. And yeah, you could do it like this. We have this catch error. We put everything that we know about this error into a store in our service. And then we go through, here we have a message, there seems to be an issue. If case 0, the backend is not available. If 401, you do not have the permissions, internal server error. And as I said, the third thing, what to do about, because you can, in my opinion, you cannot let the user alone. Oops, something went wrong, backend is down. Aha, okay, what does it mean? Please contact the key user. Okay, please log in, or please contact the IT, because if somebody says you do not have sufficient permission to blah 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 blah, just show a login button. It's easier than all the tech terms. Yeah, and this is one way, in my opinion, one example for a great way to improve the user experience with an interceptor. I have a second example, an interceptor for a loading animation, for using or for implementing a loading animation, not an interceptor for the animation, but more to implement it. I have a very simplified example, and I will have the header of my website where I show a loading spinner, and it intercepts HTTP requests, and we have a service where the loading is set to true, and as soon as we receive a response, the loading is set to false. And this is how a loading interceptor could look like. Yeah, just really basic. You have here loading status true. If we receive a return, if we receive a response, loading service, loading status is false, and this is how it could look like. We have the product list, it's taking long, and we have the thing on the top, so when you don't want to integrate a loading spin on every single part of your application, you can just use this. Ideally you have like skeletons or something like this, but with this sign here, maybe I can show it again because it was pretty fast. With this sign here, it's a cheap way to, in my opinion, it's just a few lines of code, and you can have little gimmick for the user that they see something is going on, and even, or especially, not even, especially if it's an enterprise application which is used by a user for a long time, for example, and somebody, an office worker is using it 8 hours a day. Things like this will stay in memory, and when something isn't working, they look, oh, is something loading? Oh, something is loading, I will wait for a second. Yeah. So, great, now I cannot go to yes. Interceptor for caching. This is the last example that I will provide today. I have now a really basic implementation of a caching system. Yeah, in 40 minutes we know if a signal store would be a great use case for a caching system on our front end. So we store all GET responses in, for example, a map, an array, signal store, whatever you prefer. And on every GET call, we check, do we have something stored? If so, return the stored data and stop the HTTP call, because we do not need an HTTP call. And else continue and store and everything. And this is how it might look like. On the left side we have the interceptor. So here is my mouse. We have a cache service, and on every request we just check if there is something. If so, give back the data of the caching service, so the cache response, and otherwise just go on and store our response that we receive from the backend in the cache service with, yeah, I have in the example the URL as the ID, as the key, and the real reply from the backend as a value. And yeah, so, but that's not ideal. There is an improvement. We should add a timestamp on this use the stored data for a specific time. Otherwise, as I said before, office worker, I've made applications which are running, I don't know, for weeks, and the user doesn't hit F5, and the problem is that they will see outdated data. And so remove outdated data from the store periodically to free the data and only use the data for a specific timestamp. And I have a small example here. We have the date now, and if it's older than 60 seconds, get rid of it and make the HTTP call. Otherwise, use the stored data from our service. So, and the next slide I have is dark background, because I'm interested. Oh, that's a good thing. I inverted every single image of my code example because I thought the black background is not good visible here. Yeah, and this is how we chain the providers. First we have the caching interceptor, then the network analysis, and then the loading interceptor, and they are all going from one to another. And yeah, my summary about interceptors. Interceptors intercepting HTTP requests and responses. That's the definition from Angular.io is saying. You can have multiple interceptors, one after another, with the text handle function. And yeah, it's useful for auth tokens, for network diagnosis, for caching, for loading animations, and for many, many more things. For example, I have listed a few more use cases. You can have a retry logic. If a request is failing, try it 3 times, 4 times before sending an error to the user. Maybe it's just a very short outage. You can queue and limit requests. For example, if you have a dashboard with, I don't know, 20 different charts, and they should reload periodically, and you create a queue one after another, and should be called, and to put the weight from the backend a little bit. And for search queries, for example, if you have, how is it called when you type and immediately do the search? I don't know, type ahead of something. I don't know, there is a term for it, which is in every modern search engine. And I'm sure there are 100 more use cases. But yeah, I don't want to bore you. This is why I will come to an end now. Yeah, the conclusion: guards and interceptors can both be used for improving user experience. I mean, everything that Angular provides can be used for improving user experience, but I just wanted to have to specify on 2 things today, and I actually wanted to do guards and error handlers, but then I sent an email to Alex and I had the wrong headline, and so I had to rewrite my presentation. Yeah, annoying business requirements can be met still with good and consistent UX. So such weird business requirements, as I said before, with the product link which should be visible, or the password policies. Yeah, guards are not only auth guards, because many articles in medium.com would think that. You have multiple guards and all have to pass. If one fails, everything fails. And interceptors are not only for authentication authorization tokens. And again, you can have multiples and one after another. And yeah, thanks a lot for being here. This is the end of this presentation. I have a QR code here with links to my profile, my website, the GitHub repo with demo code. And yes, if there are any questions, if you want to discuss anything, we can do it. And afterwards, let's say we will have some drinks. This is the perfect